I'm getting to the stage where I'm ready to start pulling apart the transmission on the Red 124 project. I didn't read the manual before starting this teardown. I have pulled these transmissions apart before. I have not rebuilt one yet. This will be my first time, but from what I can see, it's not exactly rocket science. I'm just going to be following the manual. Everything is explained pretty clearly, and when it comes time to putting it back together, I have interest in doing the first gear start modification, details of which will be at the end of this video. If anyone can tell me if that particular modification even works or not, I'd be interested to know. No one can give me a straight answer. Can it really be that simple? I don't know. In any case, I just started pulling everything off the outside of the transmission, everything I'm going to be replacing anyway. This neutral safety switch is broken. It did actually work, but I broke the white retainer when I disconnected the wiring harness, so the whole thing has to be changed. This is how I remove these side covers. It works pretty well, except when you have the long dual springs, as per the other side you will see later. Unfortunately, I didn't have the clamp in an acceptable position, and a comical event resulted. This rear nut was already loose from my impact gun previously when I already had this transmission apart to have a quick look at it. That's why it came out so easily. Ordinarily, it's not that easy to remove. That rear nut did actually survive the impact gun. Normally it shreds them, so I think I'll actually reuse that. I then just continued on removing the back cover. If you didn't see in the last video when I had this transmission apart, that rear seal has basically turned into hard plastic and it cracks and falls to pieces. It's little wonder the previous owner was driving around with 4 litres of transmission fluid. The amount of fluid loss must have been ridiculous, but it never ceases to amaze me what people will continue driving around and just tolerate, rather than spending money and fixing something properly. Fortunately, all of those rear bolts appear to be the same size except the lower 3. They are longer than the rest, and the rest all seem to be the same as each other. I'm kind of glad that I'm making this video because at least I can reference it myself when it comes time to putting it back together, because no doubt I will forget where half of these bolts go. These are the lower 3 that are longer than the rest. The solenoid at the rear of the transmission, depending on where it was tightened up at the factory, may foul that rear cover's removal. I just had to loosen it and rotate it, and it then cleared the rear cover. But I later removed it completely anyway, just to save it getting destroyed. So that white gear is for the mechanical speedo on 6-cylinder 124s. If this was a 126, that would not be there. I wish they had electronic speedos on 6-cylinder 124s. I don't know why they didn't. It must be a cost-cutting measure. This large sprocket is for the parking position, so it locks the transmission. And there are these shims behind that. And this locking pole is what actually locks that sprocket. So that's what engages with the sprocket to lock the transmission when you put it in park. And I'm just removing that solenoid as mentioned earlier. And this little roller on this arm, I just removed that so it doesn't get lost in the process of moving this thing around. So last thing I need is little bits falling out and getting lost. It's a lot of work to get back here later. This pump was already removed in a previous video where I showed the state of the reverse friction discs. Ordinarily, I don't think you'd be removing this with your fingers. There are bolt holes that you can put bolts into to push this out, or pull it out, as the case may be. But as it's been removed, it was very easy. Overall, I'm damn impressed with this transmission, except for its appearance. It disgusts me as to how filthy it is. But the actual friction materials, as you can see here, are like new. And this is a transmission with over 300,000 kilometers on it, and there's virtually no wear whatsoever in that front clutch there, which is astonishing. This is where I messed up, putting the clamp the way I did. I should have actually had the clamp more extended and having the screw down piece further out, so I actually had more space to retract it. Otherwise you'll see what happens here. I basically can't go any further, and I'm stuck with the decision of, shall I let it explode out, or shall I put it back together and make the clamp more suitable? I decided to just let it explode out. Fortunately, it missed my 124s by millimeters. Now that this front band support is removed, it's much easier to remove the reverse friction discs and steels. You can remove them without taking that out. In fact, that's how I did my blue-black car. That's the rest of that assembly that went absolutely flying once I had the clamp removed. Those springs are pretty beefy. You will not be compressing those by hand unless you're some kind of bodybuilder. I was not able to. So with that plastic guide out of the way, removing the reverse friction discs and steels is a piece of cake. To my astonishment, the frictions were not down to metal. They were on my blue-black car with 120,000 kilometers less. I really don't understand why that transmission was so bad. Although that car does have a tow bar installed, so possibly it's trailer related. Maybe they were reversing a trailer up a hill or something like that. I don't know. This car has never had a tow bar installed. Having seen the state of this pan, I don't think this transmission has had a fluid and filter change in more than 100,000 kilometers. This is absolutely disgusting. Fortunately, there's no metal in any of this sludge. It's just like friction material, presumably the reverse. Maybe some of the rear band as well. But otherwise, it's not too bad. Now let's have a look at this atrocious filter. I'm sure it will not disappoint. With the filter in this state, I don't think it was filtering anything. I wouldn't be surprised if the valve body is completely contaminated with this sludge as well. Although, from what I'm seeing so far in the side covers, it probably was working as best it could. There's not a great deal of this sludge through the sides, so maybe it's okay. I'm going to clean it all out anyway, so it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. This is just removing the selector shaft from the side of the transmission so I can remove that assembly from inside and get it out of the way. It's just one screw. And out it comes. Naturally, there is a seal on the side that will need to be changed as well. That will be in my master rebuild kit that I already have for this transmission. This is the rear band support, different design to the front one. I have been told that I should probably change this as well, although I'm not familiar with them ever breaking like the front one does on a regular basis. This side cover, fortunately, is not going to cause any explosions. You can just push this in by hand. It comes out damn easy. So easy, in fact, it didn't want to pop back out again. I had to encourage it. What's not immediately obvious is this snap ring at the rear output shaft. It prevents you from pulling out the whole rotating assembly, so that has to be removed, and it does have two places it can get stuck, three in fact, on the way coming out. It's quite an annoying deal to get that off. Once that's out, the remainder of the rotating assembly can just come out straight through the front. There's one more clutch assembly at the rear there. That just comes out through the front as well. Now this one is showing slight signs of wear. Nothing to write home to mother about, but it's still pretty damn good. And that's the rear band. This one is made much more substantial than the front one, so it obviously has a harsher life. But again, there's only minimal wear on this one. It does have some signs of wear, but nothing that I would be gravely concerned about. I probably could have got away with resealing this transmission, cleaning it out, and putting a seal kit in it, and probably new friction discs for reverse. This is the governor at the rear. It's also not immediately obvious, but the shaft that releases it with this plastic hook is actually on the auxiliary pump side. You just have to loosen its nut and turn it. And then the governor can come out on the other side. And this pump is just held in by 3 screws. And there's a O-ring on the outside of it and an O-ring inside the little cover on it as well. So all of that will be in my kit to replace. And there's a spring, a valve seat, and a cover with snap ring that goes into that pump assembly. So this is the carnage left over from today's teardown. Once I get some cleaning solvent, I'll actually start pulling these assemblies apart and cleaning up the workplace that I am actually working on, because you don't want to be working on a transmission on a filthy bench like this. Once again, that's that front band, looking pretty damn good, but I won't be reusing it. I have new everything. I am truly astonished at how much friction material is left inside this transmission after over 300,000 kilometers. These transmissions are really quite impressive, although antiquated by today's standards. Damn impressive nonetheless. And that's how I'm leaving it for now until I get some cleaning solution and get started on the sub-assemblies. This is the first gear start that I have been told about. If anyone has done this before and can confirm that it actually works, I would like to hear from you. Or if you have done it and it achieved nothing or had untold side effects, let me know in the comments down below. There's not a lot of information about this. Apparently the 202 series had permanent first gear start, so obviously there's valve bodies out there that already have it, so let me know what you think.